Okay, in 6.2, part 2, for expanding and condensing, we are going to look at condensing. Now, remember the three properties we talked about in part 1. And for the three properties, for condensing, we're going to start with the last property first. So remember, if there are any numbers in front, they get to be moved up as a power. And then if you see any addition sign, you will change that to multiplication. And if you see a subtraction sign, you will change that to division. So remember, condensing, you want to bring it down to just a single log. So in your problem, you should have log or ln only written one time, and then you will have the information after it. So it should look like the problems, how they started yesterday when we were talking about those. So like I said, start with the property that has any numbers in front of a log move up as a power. So on the first one, I would take this 4 in front of the log and move it up as a power for the m. Then I would take this 3 and move it up as a power for the n. And the third log doesn't have any number in front, so there will be no power for the p. So right now I'm looking at log base 4 of m to the 4th power plus log base 4 n to the 3rd power minus log base 4 of p. Okay, then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the plus sign, and plus is going to change to multiplication. And then I see subtraction, and subtraction is going to change to division. So I'm going to write log base 4 only one time. And then off to the side, I'm going to have m to the 4th, n to the 3rd. And since I'm multiplying those, I'm going to write them right next to each other. And then I'm going to take that information, both of those right there, and I'm going to divide them. So I'm going to make a fraction, since I'm dividing, by the letter p. And then that will make your final answer. Okay, so on B, I'm going to take the 1/2 and I'm going to move it up as a power for the C. And then I'm going to take a 7 and I'm going to move it up as a power for the N. So I'm looking at log base 2 C to the 1/2 power minus log base 2 of N to the 7th power. Then I see subtraction, and subtraction is going to turn to division. So I'm going to write log base 2 one time, and then I'm going to have C to the 1/2 power divided by, so make a fraction, n to the 7th power. Now here, don't stop on this problem because this problem is a little bit unique. So off to the side here, we're going to make a little statement. Okay, if you can remember with condensing, with expanding, we talked about with expanding, we were saying, oh, no roots allowed. Well, for condensing, there is no fraction powers allowed. So instead of doing a fraction power, what you want to do is you want to change it into a root. So basically we're going backwards from what we were doing in expanding. Okay, so for example, I'll make one up here to the side. So if I had x raised to the 1 over 6. Then you're going to have a root, and you're going to put x. All right, so the top number of the power goes inside the root as your exponent. The bottom number of the power goes outside as your index, because remember we always talked about it was inside over outside. So if you look at this problem, we're going to keep log base 2. We're not going to worry about n to the 7th power. We're going to leave that alone. But on the top, you would want to change it into c to the 1st inside, and then square, so a little power of 2, so, or I mean, sorry, not power of 2, index number of 2 on the outside, so square root of c. And that would make your final answer. All right, C, for this one, the only one that has a number in front is the last one. So that's going to become a c to the 2nd. So I'm just going to start doing this here. So I'm going to get rid of the 2 in front by putting it up as a power. And then I notice I have a subtraction, and subtraction is going to change to division. So I'm going to take A divided by B. And then I see plus. Plus is going to change to multiplication. And then I'm going to multiply that by C squared. Okay, whenever you're taking a fraction times something, that basically means that the times c squared is going to end up going to the top of the fraction. So your final answer should be log base 7 written one time. And then on the top you have a, and then c squared, and then divided by b. And if you're not sure about that, over here at the top part, you could always think of this as being c squared over 1 if I want to make it a fraction. And then you just multiply the tops together and multiply the bottoms together. And then you could write your answer this way. Done. Okay, finally we get to one that has all numbers. So since it has all numbers, we're going to actually get to work this out. So I'm going to take the 2 here, and I'm going to move it up as a power. I'm going to take the 3 and move it up as a power. And then I'm going to do 40 squared divided by, because I see subtraction. Subtraction changes to division. 4 to the 3rd power. So there on my calculator, I would take 40 squared divided by 4 to the 3rd power, which will give me 25. And then I'm going to take 25, and I see subtraction, so I'm going to take the 25 and I'm going to divide it by 5. And 25 divided by 5 is 5. So now I'm just going to write my log one time, and then I've simplified this all the way down to just the number 5. So log 5 is your answer. So if you have one that has all numbers, then you need to work it out. Just go step by step by step by step, and then you can put log in front of the final number when you have worked it all out. Okay, then the last two have some parentheses in them. Okay. So on E, I'm going to take the 2, and I'm going to move it up as a power for the A. And now this 3, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to move it up as a power for the B, and I'm also going to move it up as a power for the C. And then I'm going to take this negative, and when I distribute the negative here, that's going to change the middle sign from a plus to a minus. So I'm going to think of it as log base 5 of a squared minus log base 5b to the third minus log base 5c to the third. So whenever you have that parentheses, we basically want to distribute the stuff so that we can end up getting rid of the parentheses, and then we'll be able to work it out and come up with our answer. So now between the a squared and the b to the third, I see a subtraction, which means division. So I am going to take a to the second and divide it by b to the third. And then I see another subtraction, which also just means dividing. So if that is dividing, that just means c to the third also will go on the bottom with the b. And remember, if you look at the original problem, it was in parentheses, which means b and c was multiplied together. So that means b and c both have to be right next to each other. So you notice they are both on the bottom, which means multiplying. And then the distributive property of the negative means that they are both have to be dividing. So they're on the bottom together. So now I'm just going to put the log base 5 out in front of it, and we are finished. Okay, next one. Okay, I'm going to take the 1/3 and move it up as a power for the x. Boom. Now, here's the tricky part for the y. You will notice that inside the parentheses, we have a 4, so I'm going to move that up first. But then I also have to take this 1/3 and move it up as a power. So you will notice that the y has 2 powers. It has a 4 and a 1/3. So since it has 2 of them, we're going to go ahead and just multiply those 2 together. So we're looking at log 2 plus log x to the 1/3 plus log y. And then if I take 4 times 1/3, 4 times 1/3 is just 4/3. So that one was a little tricky because there was a power inside the parentheses in front of the log for y, and then we also had to take that number outside of the parentheses and move it up as a power. Okay, then I see pluses. Pluses is going to turn to multiplication. So I'm going to have 2 and then x to the 1/3 and then y to the 4/3. They're going to be all written right next to each other for multiplication. But remember, like we talked about with letter B up above, there is no fraction powers allowed when you are condensing. So we're going to change our fraction powers into roots. The 2 here doesn't have a fraction power, so leave that alone. Don't do anything with that. Okay, for the x, okay, so that's going to be a power of 1 on the inside, and on the outside you're going to have the index number of 3. And for the y, you're going to notice that it would have a power of 4 on the inside, and it would have an index number of 3 on the outside. So the x part and the y part both go under the same root because they both have the bottom number of 3. And then we're just going to come out here and put log in front of that, and we are finished. So remember, like I said with this one, it is backwards from expanding. So condensing, you start with numbers in front, they go up as powers. Adding changes to multiplying, subtraction changes to division, and then just remember, no fraction powers. Fraction powers must be changed into roots.